talk about cleanliness of your list, right? Just like, every day I scrub a dub. You
Yeah.
need to scrub your list. You need to keep your list clean. So what we're referring to when we talk about having a clean list, Jimmy, give us that.
Well, in my opinion, is the address up to date? Is the email bouncing? Did they get remarried? That information that you've just got to update it. Because if I'm sending out an anniversary and they're divorced, dumbass, but how am I supposed to know? That kind of stuff, keeping it clean.
Yeah. So, think about it. I mean, I'm sure everybody that's listening at some point or another, you've had a different job than you've had today.
Yeah.
And nowadays, they give you an email. Hey, it's Jimmy at Jimmy's, here you go. Here's your new email address. And then you use that email address and then you switch jobs and now the email address is gone. And so what do? They go in their system and go delete, right? But people are still sending stuff to that. And you try your best to migrate them over. It never all really works. So the right answer is that, if you have other information with those folks, you can clean the list and then you can figure out tactics to do with it. Okay. So there's like a whole bunch of advanced strategies that I don't think people ever think about when they're thinking about loyalty and rewards and how this stuff really plays out in the back end that adds a tremendous amount of value. The data and the analytics and to be able to slice and dice the data is where the real value is. So I have emails that are bouncing, but I also see that person is still transacting at my restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, right. I still see that they're in my rewards program and the points are still adding up.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things are happening. If you run it all via email, and this is one of those things that I always warn about, if your whole program is based off of email, even inside of our program, if you opt for an email version of what we do for economics, well, what happens when that person's email address is bouncing, but we know that they're still transacting? It means they're getting rewards, but then they're actually not actually earning them, which means ultimately they're either going to get pissed off or you're not communicating to them enough.
Correct.
And you're going to slowly, you'll see it'll start to get spread out and then they'll go away. So what do you do? What do you do, Jimmy? How do you fix that problem?
Well, that's a tough one. We set up something where they can log in to the system and update that information on their own. We'll use your newsletter as an example. We'll say, hey, if your job's changed or you've moved, don't forget to log in and update us so that we can send you more of your information. But we took that away from them by giving them a way to come and update it.
Yeah, so you got to give your people a way to keep their own data updated. I agree with that. But the basics that at the very least you should do is if their information is bouncing and your email is bouncing, again, in our world, we believe in capturing a lot of information. I get name, address, phone number. I get their birth date, their anniversary. I get their spouse. I get their children. I get their birthdays. I get everybody's information. And you'd be crazy. I can show you stacks of cards. Everybody's like, oh, nobody's going to fill that out. I'm like, oh, yeah? Watch this. Right?
Even asked the dog's birthday once.
So all of a sudden, you have a lot of information. The more information that you actually capture, and the system that Jimmy and I built, we get the minimal amount of information up front, and then we keep coming back to get them to give us more information. And you can reward them for actually giving you more information. So, if information is valuable, and I'm telling you it's super valuable, because if I only have an email address and I don't have their cell phone number, I can't text them. I can't text them and say, hey, your email address is bouncing and you're missing out on rewards. If I don't have their actual address and proper name and identification, I can't mail them a postcard that says, hey, your email address is messed up. But you know what I can do, Jimmy? And I've shamelessly done this. I have posted people's names in my newsletter and I've said, hey, if your name is on this list, you've won a prize.
Log in.
Pretty good, right? It's like, hey, my name's on the list. Yes, it is. I've been looking for you. Those are some good tricks you can use, but the more information and the better you clean your list, and you should do it regularly, at least quarterly. We do whole account reviews every quarter. You should absolutely, at least every quarter, just sit down and look at like, okay, do I have bad information? What's not going, what's happening with the stuff that I have?
Absolutely. One of the things, Jonathan, not only the bounces, but if we're sending emails and they're not opening them, by the fifth time you're sending an email, if they're just not opening it, is it in spam? Is it in one of those Google folders they're not looking at? Is it in one of their 300 emails they get a day in their Outlook? You know, you got to use that knowledge to go, well, if they're not opening it, I got to talk to them in a different way. Or it's bouncing, I got to talk to them in a different way. And that data is huge. It's huge.
Absolutely. And again, if you make your restaurant engaging and fun, you know, people will want to open your stuff. That's the other thing about it. You know, they know that when you're communicating, it's actually something that they want to check out. They don't want to miss out on that good time. FOMO, right? You know, fear of missing out.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're good at this, your customers will have FOMO and they will want to open your stuff. So let's talk about, so Liz.